The Civil War of Skyrim is one of the properties we don't often talk about, even though it has one of the biggest impacts on the game. And overall, if you look at the way the story plays out, besides parts where, Alduin comes in, is pretty much the main reason and emphasis for the groundworks of how Skyrim is as a landscape. So what you're going to be hearing in today's video is going to be the story of Skyrim's Civil War, overall some backstory that I'll give of the major players, and the only main outcome conceivable. So the first of the main group that we need to be discussing is the Thalmor, as they are the key players behind everything. The Thalmor are in charge of the Old Married Dominion, which is one of the main 3 unions across the whole of Tamriel. They basically are a bunch of elvish purists, that's the best way of putting them. And after being defeated a long while ago, they end up having the White Gold Concordat signed, which gave them, the Thalmor, the right to demolish anyone who worshipped Talos. And that is across the whole continent, not just within areas that are under their control. They're basically the racial purists of Tamriel. That's pretty much what they are. This all happens after the Great War, which was instigated by the Thalmor in the first place. And on this quest to destroy all the worshippers of Talos, their eyes got set onto Hammerfell and Markarth. During this time you had the Markarth incident occur, which led to a deal being struck between Ulfric Stormcloak and Igmund, the Jarl of Markarth. On one side of the deal you had Igmund needing Ulfric's help to get rid of the Reachmen, who started the invasion upon Markarth to take back their homeland. The Reachmen are eventually known as the Forsworn within Skyrim. You will learn more about this, especially during the Forsworn conspiracy mission. On the other side of this deal was the freedom to worship Talos. Because the deal is then struck, Ulfric brings his legion of warriors to Markarth and uses his Thu'um to take back the city. Sadly, this was eventually a backstab, really, because once the Imperial Legion turned up to Markarth, Ulfric was refusing them entry, as he wanted them to agree to the same demands that he made with Igmund of the right to worship Talos. The Imperials end up agreeing to this demand, but afterwards, the Thalmor find out that they were going to be breaking the treaty, so they gave the Empire a choice. The choices were war, or simply allowing them to get rid of people who worship Talos. Obviously, the Empire caved in for pretty much no reason, as they seem to be extremely weak by this point. Well, it's not for no reason, and that could be an entire video on its own right, but all in all, for some reason, the Empire just decides to bend the knee all the time to the Thalmor. All of this eventually led to Ulfric being arrested, and during this time they enforced the banning of worship towards Talos throughout the whole of Skyrim, which is now where the Thalmor take their main gamble of this entire play. The gamble was simply they step back and allow whatever to happen to take place, as they could already see that what they wanted was already in motion. This plan was simple: let the clearly brewing civil war to take place, and either way, they would eventually step in and finish the issue. With one outcome being the Imperials winning, which basically just means the Thalmor win as well, and the other being the Stormcloaks. But with them being weak, spread thin, they were then able to just sweep across Skyrim and completely demolish whatever is left. So let's just jump a little bit deeper into this and the state of Skyrim just before the opening of the game. For us to begin this side of the story, we need to talk about Ulfric and his background. Many consider the Stormcloaks to kind of be the bad guys in the entire story, and if you choose them, you're basically supporting Elven and Khajiit racists in the world of Skyrim. Which, yeah, understandable to see, but I wouldn't say the Imperials are necessarily much better. The only difference is that the Imperials simply don't believe themselves to be getting played in any way, so they are indirectly starting a genocide of a whole religion and its people. Both are as bad as one another, but during the game you end up seeing Ulfric's nationalism and racism in acts of segregation within Windhelm in particular, especially by the dock. But during the Markarth incident in particular, there's many different accounts of how this went down, and basically a lot of them point that Ulfric did many different things that would be considered extremely bad, and treated the Forsworn extremely unfairly. Some accounts showed that he imprisoned them unfairly, but some others say that he unjustly executed a lot of them. But again, this is something that's not really ever confirmed by any reputable sources, so it's not really something to care about too much. After returning to his newfound seat in the province of Skyrim, he'll then set out on showing how weak Skyrim is under the Imperial rule. This was considered close to treason at the time, but he ends up challenging the new king of Skyrim, Torygg, to a challenge to rule, a trial by combat under the old Nord way. After the king accepted Ulfric's request, he ends up using the power of the voice to defeat Torygg. But after rightfully winning this trial by combat, people such as General Tullius classed it as an attempt to usurp the throne, which is where you get the line at the beginning of the game. After he was ambushed though by the Imperials, they round up everyone, and the Dragonborn is included within that group, which brings you to the opening of the game where Alduin comes swooping in, and everything, doesn't go to plan for the Imperials and they don't get the execution they wished for. All of this though is effectively background noise to the actual issue at hand, which is the fact that the Thalmor are just the puppet masters of Tamriel. All of this is really just a bid for control to take over the whole region of Skyrim and more. Many would say the game is definitely set up to make you feel like the Stormcloaks are going to fail no matter what, but overall it doesn't really matter, because again, there's only a few outcomes here, but there's only one actual one that makes sense overall. As your two options are basically the Imperials win, which in turn means the Thalmor win and continue to rule over the region, basically using the Empire as their puppets. And the other option, and I'd say is the more spicier ending to this entire debacle, is Ulfric wins the war and Thalmor try to take back Skyrim. They'd probably make a deal of some sort under the table with the Empire, effectively saying, we're going to prove to you how weak you are and we will now go in and take back Skyrim for the Empire, but in doing so, you have to give us something more in return. Effectively conceding over more control to the Thalmor and making them more of a powerful thing. They'd end up taking out all the remaining Nordic warriors, including all the Stormcloaks and sympathizers, and also take out anyone who worships Talos along the way. Now, there's a lot of other things related to the Thalmor within the world of Skyrim. You learn a lot about things like, for example, how they want to get rid of the Blades because they were part of Tiber Septim, and all these different parts of the game that make sense towards why the Thalmor are the way they are. However, at the end of the day, the Thalmor literally do want to take over the whole of Tamriel to then, to my knowledge, effectively sacrifice the entire planet off to their gods so that they can be classed as, you know, raising above it. It's very interesting overall if you look into it. But yeah, if you guys did enjoy this video and you want me to jump more into the world of Tamriel and just talk about the history of the continent and Nirn and just talk about some theories and that sort of thing of what could be happening and what we might see in the future for Elder Scrolls 6 and some stories, that wouldn't be something that I wouldn't be against doing. So if it is something that you're interested in, let me know in the comments down below. And I could talk about many different things, such as the conquest that the Thalmor are wanting to go on over the course of the entirety of Tamriel, other areas on Nirn itself, the Daedra Lords, everything like that. But yeah, with that all being said, if you guys did enjoy, make sure to subscribe to the channel, leave a like as well on the video, and if you decided to, you can always support the channel by joining the members only section. So I'll see you guys in the next one. Have a good one.